So welcome along to A Story to Tell with me, Richard Beauvoisin. This is mainly taken from my Radio Bath show every Thursday morning from 10 until 12. If you do like it, don't forget to subscribe, share it to others and let everyone know all about Radio Bath. Hope you enjoy it.
Bath and West Wiltshire's Radio Bath.
So it's Richard Beauvoisin right until midday today. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Richard.
And
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for having us on Radio Bath. That's right, that's a podcast I listen to called Tail Enders. And it's a cricket podcast, but they always talk about, they say, good morning and thank you for listening to Tail Enders. And one of the other presenters always says, thank you for having us on Tail Enders, even though they are on Tail Enders. So I'm thanking you for being on Radio Bath, even though we're on Radio Bath.
Well, I'm grateful to be here, Richard, and thank you for having me.
It's going to be a fun morning. I can tell these things. It really is. It is going to be fun. Now, you are here as a midwife. Okay, you are. What's your official title?
Well, I'm the regional lead midwife for Placenta Accreta.
Bless
and
you.
I'm also. I know that's maybe we can discuss that later. What it actually is.
We will be talking about that in a section
later.
Later.
Because most people probably don't know what that is. And I'm also the lead theatre midwife in one of the large southwest hospitals.
Amazing. Now, I'm asking you how you are at the moment. Now, I know something that you had to do early this week, which is sad.
Yes.
And we're going to start off with that because today is going to be all about kind of education. So we've done a number of these about prostate cancer, the menopause, a variety of different bits and pieces as well, ADHD, for instance. Mm-hmm. And today is definitely going to have some sad stuff in it.
Yeah.
We don't apologise for that because sometimes it's really important to talk about things that people don't want to talk about. So tell us what happened on Monday.
So on Monday, I attended a funeral. And this funeral was for a baby of one of my patients. So baby loss is tragic and awful, and it's something a parent should never have to do.
Yeah.
And but when you're part of that journey as a midwife, sometimes it's the right thing to attend the funeral. Sometimes it's not appropriate, but sometimes it is appropriate to go and support that family. And in this situation, it was appropriate to go. It did mean me travelling quite a long distance and being away from home, which means you're away from your support network. But it was the right thing to do to go. And we'll probably talk about my experience of loss and how that made me feel on Monday.
Right.
Just going and having to relive my own personal experience.
Let's go there now.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, whenever I do these interviews, I never kind of plan really what we're going to do. So let's find out. So tell us about that experience.
So 30 years ago now, it's a long time ago, I was pregnant with my second baby, and I'd not felt brilliant during that pregnancy. I'd kind of, as I was getting along, kind of 26, 27 weeks, I wasn't feeling so well. But in those days, there wasn't the support that we have nowadays. Nowadays, we have something called a day assessment unit, where you go in if you're not feeling great, if you've got reduced movements for your baby, you'd go in and get assessed. And we didn't have that then. We just had community midwives, and my community midwife happened to be on holiday, and they didn't have any cover for her.
Wow.
So I made a GP appointment, but as we know, even then, GP appointments are quite hard to come by. So I had to wait for a while. And I attended on a Monday morning, and she listened in, and there was no heartbeat. And so it didn't really feel real at that moment. I just thought, she just couldn't find it. Yeah. So I got sent to the hospital, and I had a scan. And my husband at the time, I couldn't get hold of him, and so my dad came with me, and we had a scan, and there was no heartbeat, and so I was told that my baby had passed away, and that I would need to be induced, and I was horrified at the thought of having to give birth vaginally. I just thought I'd have a cesarean section. I don't know why. I just assumed you wouldn't have to.
How was baby number one delivered?
Vaginally at home.
At home,
We can talk about that later.
Later on, we'll come back to that.
So I had an uneventful pregnancy with her and a normal vaginal birth at home. So I wasn't expecting this, and I was young. I didn't have any risk factors. So it was really unexpected to have this happen. And then my husband came in, and he I mean, we can talk about this a bit more in depth about the difference between men and women and how they react, and the male role and the female role, and the support that women get and the support that men get or don't get. So it was all a bit of a shock, and I got I went home to get my stuff to go back in to be induced, and then I insisted on having another scan in case something miraculous had happened, but obviously it hadn't. And so I was induced, and then he delivered the following morning. It was quite quick. He was born completely in his sac.
Right.
And the thing that struck me about it was the silence. That birth is very noisy, and it was silent. There was no cry. There was just a baby that looked perfectly formed, and he was not alive. And it was it's a really traumatic event to go through, obviously, but it affects you in so many different ways that you wouldn't imagine. Just the feeling of failure, the feeling of letting everyone down, because I'd lost not only my son, I'd lost a grandson, I'd lost on my husband's side the firstborn son of the firstborn son of the firstborn son, which was a really big deal. It was very significant, having lost him, and how the family then coped. His family coped with that was quite shocking, actually, to put it bluntly.
You weren't supported at that point. And we'll definitely talk much more about support for the
I
support
was really
networks.
supported by my family. My family were really good. My dad was with me, and my dad absolutely sobbed when I was told. We both sobbed together, and it was a very bonding experience for me and my dad, because we were together when I was first told that he'd died. And his name was Daniel, and it was a really bonding experience for my dad and I.
Thank you for sharing all of that, because, looking into each other's eyes as we are now, we're both welling up a little bit. And that's okay to do that. And I'm guessing on Monday, you kind of relived a lot of this.
Yeah. The coffin. It's the coffin. Seeing the coffin, a baby coffin, as you can imagine, is very small. And there's something about a really small coffin that just feels completely wrong. When you see an adult coffin, it represents someone who's had a good life, and I don't know, it doesn't feel...
Well, quite often when
small coffin
you go to a funeral, you're celebrating their life.
Yeah, exactly.
For my funeral, I don't want anyone to wear black. I'll make this public now. I want everyone to wear colours and just celebrate the fact that I've been alive for X amount of years.
Yeah.
The babies haven't had a chance.
No.
They've not had a life.
And the funeral isn't about celebrating their life. It's about grieving what would have been and what you've lost. And it's a very different emphasis on the funeral, really. So it was an interesting psychology, really, of what happens to you when you attend a funeral like that.
Right. It's tough, and part of the job that you have to do. And I don't think many people would really think about that side of things at all. We're going to have a break for music, and when we come back, we're going to find out actually how you got to where you are today.
Okay.
Back with Karen shortly.
Across Bath, Bradford-on-Avon and Trowbridge, this is Radio Bath.
Back for part 2 then with the lovely Karen Periera. She's a midwife. She's in all morning. We're now going to find out how you got to where you are today. So what made you start to be a midwife then, and when did you start?
Well, I originally, right when I was a child, I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
But that wasn't really a possibility from my family perspective and education. That was never going to happen.
As in, doctors come from good places, or?
Well, there was no expectation to go to university really.
Okay.
When I was growing up,
Yep.
the secondary school I went to didn't even have A levels, so there was no expectation to be tertiary educated.
Okay.
I then looked at other careers, and I wanted to be a midwife. But in those days, you did your nurse training first and then your midwifery. So when I was 17, I headed off to the big smoke and set my heart on going to London, partly because my next door neighbour, her name was Hannah, every year her uncle would take her to London, and she would go to Hamleys and tell me all this really cool stuff about London.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, one day I'm going to show you, and I'm going to live in London. Anyway, that isn't a good basis for your career, but that's how I ended up in London.
And you went to London
So
then?
I went to London.
How was it? Because I know people that have gone to London and they have that same image of, I'm going to do all of this. And then you get there and it's a very lonely place.
It's a very lonely place. So I lived in Westminster.
Okay.
I did my nurse training at Westminster Hospital, which is now the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. So they sold that building and it became the Chelsea and Westminster.
Is that where the posh people go?
Westminster
To Chelsea and Westminster Hospital?
Not really. You get a mix of people,
Okay.
but it is in a very rich part of London.
Exclusive area.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So Westminster Hospital, it was you had the nurses' home one side and the hospital the other. So it was quite protected, thankfully, because I was very naive. I arrived in a Land Rover from Dorset in my wax jacket.
Lovely.
And so you can just imagine I was
You
a
are
little bit naive.
You are the traditional country bumpkin.
Well, not really. I grew up in Poole in Dorset.
Okay.
So, but my dad had a Land Rover, so it was quite funny to arrive in Westminster by Land Rover. And very naive.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience being in London. And I did my nurse training at Westminster Hospital.
And how long does nurse training take?
So that's a 3-year course.
3 years, okay.
But I didn't ever practice as a nurse because I then had babies instead. So I had my children, and I became a doula for a while.
Okay.
Because I
That's
didn't
natural nursing to jewellery.
doula.
Oh, doula. Sorry, I thought I said a jeweller.
No,
I'm
not a
thinking,
doula.
no,
Doula.
all of a sudden fixing
so
people's
doula is
room.
someone who supports women in birth. Yeah,
I'm glad
very
you're
different.
here.
Yeah. I think a doula might be easier, but
Okay.
a doula was what I opted to do for a while partly to see if I liked midwifery, and partly because I had an interest in it. So I did that for quite a while, and then I applied to do my midwifery training in Bristol, because we relocated from London to Bristol.
Okay.
And I did my midwifery training.
And how
in
long does
Bristol.
midwifery training
So
take?
that's 3 years.
That's 3 years as well. So 6
it's a
years
degree course. So
Yeah.
my original nursing course wasn't a degree,
Right.
but the midwifery course, because they've restructured nursing and midwifery, as you may know or not.
I don't. No, tell me about it.
So nurse training used to be, it was called, you would be a registered general nurse, and it was more like a diploma than it wasn't a degree. And then they changed it, I think in 1993, it became a degree under Project 2000. It kind of changed the course, and the course became much more academic rather than practical. Which has it's changed a lot now. It's become more practical again.
Yeah.
Which I'm very pro, because obviously nursing and midwifery are very practical jobs.
I think it's a fine line, isn't it? You need to know the reasons why you're doing something, but then need to actually practice it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the basis behind it, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to have the academic backing of what you're doing, especially when you're a professional.
Yes.
But you need to have the practical skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's a question which I love, and I don't know what the right answer is, and I'm hoping you're going to give me an answer. But what does a typical day look like as a midwife? So, you hear about the doctors doing like 20-hour shifts and then swing shifts and back on, and kind of what's a midwife's life look like?
We work 12.5-hour shifts. So we start at 7:30 and we finish at 8 p.m.
Is that the half an hour for handover? Is that why it's 12 and a half?
Yes, it's a half an hour handover, but yeah. So you arrive at 7:30 and then it's handover for half an hour, and then you're on shift till 8 p.m. Or a night shift, which is the same but in reverse.
Because babies don't always come during the daytime office hours, do they?
No. So working on delivery suite, I don't work so much just on delivery suite now. I work more in theatre, so I only really work day shifts and occasional night shifts. But because I'm not great with night shifts, and we'll talk about all the side effects of night shifts.
Yeah.
But the night shifts start at 7:30 and finish at 8 as well.
Okay.
So we get on my contract, I'm quite lucky. I get a half an hour unpaid break and a half an hour paid break, but all the new people to the trust get an hour unpaid break.
An hour unpaid break in a 12.5-hour shift.
Yeah.
That's not a lot, is it?
No, not really.
That's really not a lot.
No.
And here's a question which I'm sure lots of people want to know the answer to. What happens if you're towards the end of your shift and you're in the middle of the birthing part?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about birthing a bit more in detail later on. And you're like going, oh, that's it, I'm clocking off.
You do. On a night shift, there's the horrible, well, I'll call it the witching hour between kind of 3 and 5, where your metabolic rate drops. So you just hit a wall, and you'll hear someone go, oh yeah, I've hit the wall, and you just can't function.
Right.
You feel horrible because your body is just saying, I need to sleep. Please let me go to sleep.
I'm guessing, let's say the time is, and you clock off at 8 o'clock, is that right?
8 p.m. 8 a.m.
8 a.m. or 8 p.m. Let's say it's 7:55.
Yeah.
Okay. And the woman, I'm going to call her a woman because it will be on this occasion. I normally try and take the gender out of everything, but on this occasion, it definitely is a woman. And she's push. And getting to that point, the head's crowning, and you're like, no, that's it. Come on, next midwife, in you come.
You do. It really depends, but mostly if that's happening, you kind of, your adrenaline kicks in, and I would always stay late.
Yeah, you wouldn't just clock off and say, I'm sorry, darling, and, my time is up.
Sometimes you make the wrong call, and you think someone's about to deliver, and you say, well, I'll stay, because the woman's like, please don't leave me. Please, I don't want you to go. And you're like, okay, I'll stay. And then it's another hour before they deliver. And you're like, oh my God, I've got to come back for another night shift.
And you've committed to saying, I will stay with you till the end. Yeah. And that must be really difficult.
It is.
So we've spoken about some of the downsides of it, which we'll come back to a bit more later on. Yeah. What's kind of the great sides about being a midwife? What's the best thing?
Well, because I mostly, at the moment, I mostly work in theatre. And so I do caesarean sections. And so I get to deliver the baby as it comes up. I pull it out, and we deliver them up towards the mums, and I get to be the first person to greet that baby into the world. So I always say, happy birthday, baby, welcome to the world.
Aww.
And I just think that's the greatest privilege that you could ever do, and be part of those parents' journey into parenthood. And it's just I love that moment. That is why I do my job, because I get to make a family.
We're going to talk about the birthing process in a little bit more detail later on. So for context, I've got 4 children. 3 of them were C-section and 1 a vaginal birth. Yeah. And I'm pleased that I've kind of had both experiences, and they're both very different experiences. The weirdest part for me was when my firstborn was there, is my wife at the time, she was in hospital because she was struggling with preeclampsia. So I had to go home knowing that at 9 o'clock the following morning, I was going to be a dad. And that was really weird for me, because you're like, it's planned. Whereas normally you think, oh, the waters are broken, off you go, and you don't quite know when that's going to be. But everything was absolutely planned. Last question in this section then. If somebody did want to become a midwife, what advice would you give to them?
Think carefully about why you're doing it, because for some women, that are choosing to be, or men actually, we do have male midwives.
Yep.
They're doing it because of the baby aspect. Midwifery is not about the baby. It's about women. It's about supporting women through pregnancy and birth.
Yeah.
It's not really about. I mean, there are aspects of the baby, but it's mostly about women. And I would say if you're kind of on the younger end of the scale, at sort of 18 coming out of school, actually go and do something first. Go and get some life experience first, because midwifery is a grueling job at times. It's the most rewarding job you can do, but it's also the most grueling job because things go wrong. And you need to be in a position where you can cope with that psychologically, because it does take its toll on you.
Okay. Amazing. We're going to be back with Karen right after this.
Across Bath, Chippenham and Melksham, this is Radio Bath.
Back with Karen now. We're talking all about being a midwife this morning on A Story to Tell. How's it going so far for you, Karen?
Oh, it's okay, Richard. Not so bad.
You were quite nervous this morning, weren't you?
A little bit nervous.
Yeah. Are you
it's
feeling
more
all right
about
now?
making an idiot of myself.
That's okay. That's what we all do on a daily basis. Now, we're going to talk about the birthing process. We're going to talk about vaginal birthing to start with. And I've got a statement which I've always been confused by, and you might be able to enlighten me on this a little bit more. But why is it that women feel like they get a medal for not having any pain relief? So they talk about the fact that, I went through childbirth. I've no idea why they've turned northern. And and I didn't have a thing, just gas and air for me. And I don't get it. I really don't. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think women put a lot of pressure on other women.
Right.
To have a natural birth. It's like, I had a natural birth. Oh, did you? Oh, well, I had a cesarean section. Oh, you had a cesarean section? Oh, dear.
Right.
Why do we have that attitude? Or, I had an epidural. Oh, dear, you had an epidural. That's terrible. I had a natural birth with no pain relief.
So it's the peer pressure.
It is peer pressure,
Wow.
I think. That's my opinion.
Wow.
That women put pressure on other women.
So I'm going to ask a personal question now, which maybe I shouldn't, but let's go there anyway.
Maybe not.
Pain relief for you when you were giving birth, what did you have to do? You didn't have anything, did you?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
no.
man.
No. So
Why?
I had my first baby at home.
Okay.
And there was Entonox in the midwife's car, but it didn't ever make it out of the car. And I think when you're at home, you're in your own environment, you're much more relaxed. And I had music playing and I could dance, and I tried getting in the bath, but I hated that. So it was, I didn't have anything for her.
Okay. But it's still getting a bowling ball out of a small area.
It is. And it was a little bit sore. It was quite funny. So I had, so you have to have 2 midwives at home.
Yeah.
And the second midwife arrived and she was pregnant. And I said to her, don't do it. It's really painful. Don't do it. And she said, it's a bit late.
It's coming out.
Yeah.
So you had no pain. And was that the same for all of your children?
Yeah, pretty much. So
Right.
I tried gas and air.
Okay.
And I really didn't like it. But my husband discovered he quite liked it. So he was as high as a kite. Got told off. But I didn't like it.
Did you not? No, I understand it makes some people feel sick, doesn't it?
I did like it when I had a bike accident, and I quite liked it then with the morphine. But in labour, I didn't really like it. I liked to feel in control of what was happening to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm
Sorry,
going to...
Richard.
That's okay. No, it's not a problem. Everybody's different, and everybody's pain thresholds are different as well.
One of my friends said to me, no one ever tells you how awful it is and how painful it is. So all the way through my first birth, I was thinking, well, it's going to get worse than this. It's going to get worse. So all the way through, I was kind of like building myself up for it to get worse. And it was pretty sore at the end. But I think because she'd said that, I'd kind of like geared myself up and I'd be like, come on, give it to me then, come on.
Okay.
And so that kind of helped.
So would you advise people, if they needed pain relief, to have pain relief?
Absolutely, yes. So every woman is different. Yeah, we can't just say it's not the same for everybody. Everyone is different. So you have to just go on your own journey and do what's right for you. You can't go with what your friend did, because your body is different and how you labour is different and the environment you're in is different. So you have to just go with what is better for you and your birth journey.
Now, I'm going to tell a story which I've been given permission to tell. Okay, so my lovely wife Zoe and our daughter Beatrice, it was a vaginal birth, and it was a 22-hour labour, so it was quite a long time for us. She was about 4 or 5 hours into it, and had some gas and air, and she was step tapping it out. So she, the beginning of a class. So Karen's a dancer, for those that aren't aware as well. We often do what we call a step tap. So you step to the side and then tap your foot. Step to the side and tap your foot. And she was doing that to kind of keep it going. She also then, I have a TENS machine for my back, which I wear on the odd occasion. So she said, why don't we try the TENS machine? She'd never tried it before. And I was like, okay, let's put it on. So I put it on at a low setting, and she was like, okay, that's fine. And then after a while, she had control of the machine, and she kept turning it up. And then, surprisingly, sometimes I get a bit cranky during these periods. I've found this out. And she turned around, she went, I've had enough of the TENS machine, take it off. I went, okay, sure. So I then went to switch the TENS machine off, and I switched the TENS machine off. And even to this day, I've never heard anybody shout this loud. I'm going to go away from the microphone. As she turned around, she went, put it back on! As she screamed at me to put the TENS machine back on. And she realised actually what it was doing at that point, which was distracting her from the pain.
They are pretty good TENS machines.
Yeah.
Oh,
but she was
always
like,
remember to turn it off.
It was just irritating. It had the wires and stuff, and she was just like getting in the way of my dancing. But yeah, she was like, put the TENS machine back on. But what are the different pain methods that people could use then? So if somebody was thinking, what could I do? Kind of, there's often a level of process, isn't there?
Yeah, so there's a level of process. So obviously you've got kind of back massage or foot massage, and you can use aromatherapy oils, and they can sometimes help.
Yeah.
There are some that you shouldn't use in pregnancy, so it's always worth taking advice if you're going to use aromatherapy. Water, so being in a bath, shower. Water is very good at helping during labour.
Okay.
And then you're kind of stepping up once you're in hospital. So you can have Entonox at home. So you've got your Entonox, or if you're in early labour, Pethidine. Pethidine can sometimes make you feel a bit sick, so they give you an antiemetic with it as well.
Is Pethidine the one that kind of makes you not all there, shall we say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can make you
there
feel
were
a bit
certain
out
times
of it.
when...
So I, in my experience as a midwife, I always found Pethidine to be really useful in early labour, when things are not really going that fast, and it's quite good because the antiemetic we give can make you feel a bit sleepy as well. So you give the Pethidine, they have a nice little dose.
Yeah.
And then the baby tends to get into a better position, and labour seems to progress better in early labour. There are downsides to Pethidine because it can just subdue the baby's breathing when they're born if it's given really late on.
Okay.
And then you've got your epidural. So epidurals are a magic thing. Anaesthetists are a labouring woman's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So an epidural can be sited during your labour at any point, apart from obviously if you're pushing, you wouldn't want one sited. But it can be a bit uncomfortable having it put in when you're in the middle of having contractions and you're having to bend over to have it put in.
Yeah.
But once it's in, it's a magic thing because you don't feel any of that discomfort anymore. The downside of an epidural is you also can't feel to push so well. So it's quite... You need a good midwife to help you to push.
To push.
Yes.
Fair enough. Now, I'm going to go on to a different part here. We're going to talk about C-sections in another part, okay? But I'm going to talk about men a little bit here, okay? Now, have you ever heard, and please take this in the right way, have you ever heard of the two-finger method? Has this ever crossed your mind?
Two-finger method?
The two-finger method.
You better elaborate, Richard.
I know. We're not seeing how wide the cervix is here. I'd like to point that out. No, the two-finger method, I was given this tip really early on, and I was like, this is incredible. Now, I know we're on radio and nobody will be able to see us, but we are going to hold hands, Karen. Okay, so hold my hand, okay? Now, we're now holding hands across the studio desk, okay? Yeah. Let's imagine that you are in the full throes of childbirth. What are you going to do to my hand?
I'm going to properly squeeze
You're going to properly squeeze my hand, aren't you? Okay, now,
so
the two-finger method is if you offer just two fingers, doesn't matter how hard you squeeze, it doesn't hurt. Because, and the reason I go into this is that I've been in the birthing room, is that men don't count. If anything happens to the men, that's tough. It's not about them, it's about the women, which is completely right, of course, but they are part of it. So if they're complaining that their hand's hurting because the woman squeezed it too hard, the amount of sympathy that comes their way is quite small.
It is, yeah.
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 So have you ever heard of that?
Home. Have I ever had that where, I've had men be quite severely injured during birthing process.
In what way?
Because the woman will grab hold of their hand and kind of twist them round, and you'll have a man kind of in a weird position, and then he'll try and say something helpful like, "Oh, it's not that bad," and he'll be launched across the room. And you're like, no, don't say that. There are things not to say in labour.
Yes.
And one of them is, it can't be that bad.
It can't be that bad.
We're nearly there.
Yeah. Have you not done yet? It's what was the because men often choose whether they stay up top end or go down bottom end as well.
Yes.
And what is it? The best description I ever heard is, if you go down the bottom end, it's like having your favourite drink ruined for the rest of your life.
It's true. I did once have a client in London whose husband had been so traumatised by his first wife's birth that he just could never look at her again.
Really?
And so she was on her own. That's why she had a doula, because he couldn't be there. And so it absolutely ruined it for him.
Bless indeed.
But a birth is a hard journey for men as well. And I hope that the dads that I look after feel that I'm empathetic towards them, because I know it's difficult. It's frustrating because for a man, you're generally speaking, men try and look after their women and try and make life easier for them. And this is one situation where they can't really do anything right, because they're not a midwife, they're not an anaesthetist, and the only thing they can offer is their two fingers.
And on that note, it's time for some more music.
Made in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Back with Karen, we'll be talking all about being a midwife all morning, and it's time for a few bits of funny stories. Before we start talking about C-sections, let's talk about the things that nobody ever talks about. Now, you were mentioning off air about overnight working or night shifts.
Yeah.
What's the problem with night shifts, Karen?
Well, night shifts, for some bizarre reason, whilst during the night shift, you end up with your belly just swelling up. So you look like you're about 6 months pregnant by the time it's about 5:30 in the morning.
What's the problem with that?
And you build pressure,
Okay.
and it needs release.
Okay,
And,
so we're not going to burp here, are we?
We're not going to burp.
We're talking the other end.
Break wind.
Okay.
But you can't really do that in a birthing room. Yeah, no, you just can't do that.
Okay.
And so you need to do a strategic walk down the corridor.
Okay.
But obviously...
So do you see that quite a lot, literally
Yes,
overnight?
yes.
All of a sudden you're looking at all these birthing rooms and then a midwife just wanders out, walks away, and then walks back in.
Or you find a quiet room where you can just let rip. I don't know why it happens. So why on night shifts? I don't know. Maybe we just naturally do that overnight. I don't know. But
I'm sure there is some medical reason.
It's a known thing.
Right.
Yeah, and it gets very sore. You get very sore tummy.
Okay, so we've got breaking wind.
Yeah.
So if you ever see your midwife just leaving the room for some random moment, that's where they're going.
Yeah.
They're just off to see the doctor about something, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
What about sneezing? Because I'm going down to the point of it's the moment, push, and all of that type of stuff. And then all of a sudden you feel a sneeze starting to build.
Yeah.
That's not the right time to sneeze,
No,
is it?
really not. No.
Achoo, all over the head.
You just rub your nose, you press on your nose.
Right.
And that often will resolve the sneeze.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the midwife's trick. If you've got a sneeze, you just press on the end of your nose.
Yeah, just in the middle.
Right.
You just press it and the sneeze will go away.
Amazingly, we're both doing that now.
Yeah,
you can't see that, but we are literally just pressing our noses, even though neither of us got a sneeze coming at the moment.
No, but it does work.
And it does work.
Yeah.
Have you ever actually sneezed at the wrong time?
No, not that I remember. I do remember one time when I had this awful cold and I wasn't ill enough to be off work, but suddenly my whole face just exploded, and I had to leave the room with this woman pushing, just because I just needed to blow my nose and sort my face out, and then come back in, and it's like, oh, I just need to pop out for something.
Yeah. Now we've spoken about the sneezing. We've spoken about breaking wind. This is a lovely conversation. And actually, in some ways, it's just what everybody does, isn't it?
Yeah, we are human. Midwives are human, believe it or not.
Talking about another human thing that you do, and that might be needing the toilet.
Yes, this is a problem. So most midwives run on a point of dehydration.
Right.
And it isn't unusual for a midwife to go a 12-hour shift without weeing, which is not healthy.
Is that because of the fear of needing the toilet?
Yes, pretty much, yeah.
Right.
Because, you don't know when you're going to be able to have an opportunity to go to the toilet again.
Yeah.
So, most midwives are pretty dehydrated, and doctors and nurses, I guess, are all the same. So,
well, I'm guessing doctors would have, obviously not if you're a surgeon in the surgery room, but normal doctors could just pop out. But when you're in the middle of push, that's not the time to go, can you just hang on a minute?
Hang on a second.
I just need a wee.
Yeah.
And then just think of the pressure of having to do that wee at that moment. Wow.
Yeah.
There we go. This is live radio. It's incredible, isn't it? It really is incredible. Now,
well, let's be honest about being human.
Absolutely. Now, your main job now is actually being in theatre, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Okay, so people have an image of what a C-section's like, but take us through actually what happens in a C-section.
So I work mostly with elective caesarean sections. So these are women that have either made the choice themselves to have a caesarean section for whatever reason, or they've had a previous caesarean section, or their baby is breech. So there are many reasons why women have caesarean sections. And they'll come in and we'll prepare them for theatre. They'll go into theatre and have a spinal anaesthetic. So there's nothing left in their back. It's just a one-shot spinal for most women. And then they have an incision in their lower abdomen. Yeah. And then the baby is delivered through that hole that is created by that incision.
Now, I've had, as I mentioned earlier, 3 children delivered this way. Yeah. And again, I had the option. So again, what they don't really tell you when you're doing it for the first time, you just kind of get brought into the scenario quite late on as the dad. And you go in and the lady is lying there and there's a curtain halfway from the head down to the bottom section, just underneath the chest area. But it's not a full curtain. It's just, certainly the ones I went to, it's just raised a little bit. It's like a table tennis net, really. It's probably the best way to describe it in my head. And they said, do you want to have a look? And I was like, yeah, go on then. And then my image of this, okay, and again, this is the layman's image, is that effectively what the doctor, the midwife, whoever it may have been at that time, they had 2 spatulas. And that's what it looked like. I'm sure there's proper medical
forceps,
terms for them.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't forceps. They were literally like 2 single spatulas, it looked like, kind of holding things open. And I know, it was quite strange. And then all of a sudden the baby's head popped out and all was fine on that aspect. But it was kind of like somebody was making a dinner out of my wife's stomach at that time. And preparing it in a saucepan. Okay. It was a really bizarre scenario. But I watched all of them, and it was all quite. Again, I watched them all being born. Yeah, and that was lovely. And it's kind of what you were saying earlier about you were the first person to see that child being born. I felt like I was the first person to see, before my wife at the time, was actually seeing those children being born, which was quite strange and quite lovely for me personally.
It is an amazing thing because nowadays we still have the drape, and we tend to lower the drape after the head and shoulders are out, so you don't see anything too gruesome. And then we deliver the baby up towards the mum. So at that point, the mum and dad can both see what's happening. Yeah. And then we do a minute of delayed cord clamping.
Sorry, you do what? Sorry.
Delayed cord clamping.
Okay, what's delayed cord clamping? So
delayed cord clamping is to allow the fetal blood to go back to the baby, so it reduces childhood anemia.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah. And then obviously the placenta gets pulled out that way as well, does it?
It does, yeah. So it comes out almost straight away with a caesarean section.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The bit that I really loved about the whole C-section is that they said to us, you can design whatever the theatre's going to be like in regards to the music and stuff. And that I found really lovely. What? So we took in at this time a CD. Not that they even exist anymore. How do you feel like? Is there like some random music choices sometimes that come on and you're like going,
yes.
"Are we really doing a C-section to this?"
We've had like songs on repeat, so like the same song for an hour
because
on
they
repeat.
wanted that song.
Yes.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, and we're all just like, no, make it stop.
Yeah.
We've had some interesting music choices where you're just like, really?
It's not what I want.
No, but yeah, mostly the music's quite nice that the parents choose.
Okay.
But on occasions, we wish they didn't have that option.
So if you are due to have a C-section, please choose your music carefully. Or what you could do, this would be great, is that I could do a little, hey, you're just about to have a baby, and I could do a long like intro of the music. I could do a radio station for being birth.
Yeah, you could do, but you'd have to choose really carefully your music.
I would. We were discussing this off air. So I used to be on hospital radio many years ago down in Portsmouth, where I grew up, and we had a number of songs that were on the band playlist. Okay, so are you ready for some of these? So we had Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. That wasn't allowed. Rod Stewart, The First Cut is the Deepest.
Yeah, that's not a great one for cesarean section.
No, it's not. So you don't have any band songs then?
No, not really.
No.
We don't really like heavy metal.
Okay. I can say you want kind of
the head
relaxing.
banging surgeon isn't great.
No. We actually got complimented. So I've been a DJ for a long, long time, and I brought in a memory stick, which had hundreds and hundreds of songs on it. So, and we kind of made the room with nice lighting and all of that type of stuff. So for 22 hours, we never had a repeated song.
Wow.
And all the midwives came in going, oh, we like it in here. We don't mind coming in here. This is good.
Yeah, it's good if it's good music.
It is good.
And you don't want sleepy music. If you're labouring and you're overnight labouring and you've got some whale music on and you've got aromatherapy and you've got low lighting and the woman has an epidural, that is the ultimate sleep environment for your poor midwife.
They're just going to go...
Well, no, you're not allowed to.
No,
not unfortunately, I managed to fall asleep with my eyes open.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
which is quite awkward.
But let's hope that you didn't then sneeze and then break wind and put snot everywhere. No. Back with Karen very shortly.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Back for the last part for now with the lovely Karen Periera. Where's the Periera part from?
It's a Portuguese name.
Okay.
I've borrowed it off my ex-husband.
Have you?
He wants it back, but I've said no.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Keep it. What was your maiden name then?
Brackstone.
Brackstone. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't like that so much.
No, Periera sounds very exotic.
It's exotic. Yeah. And so I've kept it. And my kids are all Periera.
Fair enough. People often say to me, Beauvoisin, are you French? And I'm like, no. Can you speak French? No, you can't. But our surname comes back from the 1600s. The French family came over and still just us.
Wow.
Still a very few amount of Beauvoisins in the UK.
Yeah.
But there we go. Moving
and I bet you get
on.
asked how to spell it all the time.
Oh, man. Just forever. Starts the same as beautiful.
Yeah.
How many
it's
times
all
have
the
I said that?
vowels.
Yeah.
I'm the same. Pereira's got too many vowels.
Yeah. Because I was like, is it E-I-I-E? Anyway,
Yeah.
we're moving swiftly on. We're speaking about caesareans before, C-sections. Now, something that can come from that, which you are very much a specialist on, and I'm going to try and pronounce this correct, is placenta accreta.
Yes.
Did I pronounce it
correct?
correct?
Well done.
Thank you very much.
Fabulous.
Genuinely, I'm patting myself on the back right now.
Yeah.
Talk to me, what does that mean?
So when you have a caesarean section or you have any kind of uterine surgery, it creates a scar. And that can cause a scar defect in the uterus. And when you are pregnant, the placenta can then attach itself to that scar. And it can cause abnormal, I'm going to use some long words.
Go for it.
Vascularization. So when you come to deliver, the placenta is stuck, essentially. So it can be stuck in various levels of the uterus. So if it's just on the surface of the uterus, then it can be delivered in a normal unit. So if you're in Taunton or Bath, for example, you would deliver there. When it becomes more embedded in the uterus, in the uterine wall, it's recommended by NHS England that you deliver in a a specialist unit, and I work in a specialist unit.
Okay.
So all the women from the whole of the Southwest come to where I work, and I look after them.
Right.
So
how does it different in regards to what you can do compared to what, say, RUH can do?
So you need a specialist team to look after these women, because most of these deliveries will result in a hysterectomy,
Right.
and heavy blood loss. So it's very traumatic. So you need a really good team to look after these women. Most women have never heard of placenta accreta when they come to us, and which is partly why I'm here to talk about it, to make people aware that it exists. It's still quite a rare condition. So the Southwest region, we represent 45,000 pregnant women, and about 15 of those will then have a placenta accreta, just to put it in context of the numbers. So I look after about 15 women a year,
right,
with that condition. But for them, it's a life-threatening condition.
So it's, you go back into the medieval times, for instance, and women dying during childbirth was quite a common thing.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have died of placenta accreta.
Okay.
Because they didn't have cesarean sections.
Okay, so it's the C-sections that have kind of created...
primarily.
Right. So is it something that only comes if you've had a C-section, for instance?
Well, you could have had something called a myomectomy, which is where they remove fibroids, or if you've had a surgical termination, that can also cause scarring on the uterus, or if you've got a condition called Asherman's, which also causes scarring.
Okay, and all of these things. So
yeah.
If they're put into your care then, for instance, what's different then regarding what you guys would do compared to what normal midwives would do in a normal birthing process?
So they would need fetal medicine input. So they'd have a scan with a fetal medicine consultant to get a diagnosis of how severe it is. They'd then have an MRI. So that's where you go into, you've probably seen the machines.
I've been in them many times.
Yep. And
that's the noise it
so
makes,
then we
by the way.
get an MRI report to tell us how severe the accreta is. And then we make a surgical plan. So we've got specialist surgeons who will make a surgical plan of how we're going to deliver that baby safely and what gestation we need to deliver that baby at to make it safe for the baby and the mum. So we try and optimise delivery time. It's usually around 34 weeks we deliver these women.
Okay. I'm just trying to think, just tangentially off ever so slightly. The difficulty that we have in medicine is a lot of it must surely be trial and error.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking about the MRI. So if you think about an X-ray, for instance, everybody has to leave the room, or you're wearing the big kit to kind of protect yourself from that. And somebody obviously found out originally it's not very good for you to be X-rayed over and over again. I'm just intrigued at who was the first woman that said, do you know what? I think an MRI will be okay. I'll chance it with my baby. I mean, wow, what a decision that is.
Yeah.
That's, something incredible. Just thinking of the process behind all of that.
The images are incredible, though, that we get.
What type of images do you get then?
Well, because they're 3D images. So, you can have a really good look at what's happening. It's pretty cool.
You get a full 3D image of your baby?
Yeah. It's like in sections, so you can see through. So the imaging's pretty amazing.
And I'm guessing at that point you can tell if it's a boy or a girl.
It's just in slices.
That just all of a sudden sounds very painful. So if somebody did find out, how would they find out that they had this condition then?
So they would find out in their local unit. So they would be told when they have their scan, and then they'd be referred to probably their own fetal medicine unit, and then they'd refer to us. So we like to know by 28 weeks if a woman's got an accreta.
So the original scans can pick all of this up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So ultrasound is incredible.
Yeah.
And we can see a lot now, and a lot more than we used to be able to see, and training is really good. So actually what we can see is amazing.
So how long has this, I couldn't say how long has this been around, that's kind of a strange thing, but you're talking about training. How much do the new midwives know about this compared to like midwives been around forever?
So about 25 years ago, one of my really good friends died of a placenta accreta because it wasn't really known about and how to care for those women and the optimal date to deliver them. So she actually died, which was
sorry to hear
awful,
that.
leaving four children.
Yeah.
So it's really, it just puts it in context of how serious this condition is. But it's so rare that you didn't have surgeons who were skilled, and they didn't know enough about it to optimise what we do now. So now we know a lot more about it. Countries like Egypt, they've got a 90% caesarean section rate. So their surgeons are absolutely incredible because they do it all the time.
Okay.
So the only way we get better is by trial and error.
Which is a little bit scary.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But
And research. So there's a lot of research.
And again, it's like 25 years is a tiny amount in the human race, let's face it. And the amount of knowledge that you know now compared to 25 years ago, which, this is the bit that's going to scare you, was just a turn of the century.
Yeah.
We all remember going into the millennium and thinking, this is the future. That was 25 years ago, but it's still not that long ago in comparison. So how do you feel like your knowledge is of it now compared to where it might be in 5-10 years, for instance?
So obviously caesarean section is much more common than it used to be. So we're going to have more cases of placenta accreta, and with having more cases, we get more experience and we can do more research and have a greater understanding of that condition and how we can treat it better, and the surgeons get better at operating. We've got some incredible surgeons that can do incredible things. So sometimes they don't need to do a hysterectomy, and they can do something called a wedge resection. So they can cut the diseased area out and join it together. Amazing. Which is incredible. And I never thought I'd see anything quite like that. It's amazing. So it's moving forward all the time. And the great thing with research, the NHS funds a lot of research, and we will be moving forward with it and developing skills and optimising care. Brilliant.
Now, if somebody was given the news that they had placenta accreta, how should they feel at this moment?
They would feel scared, okay? But they don't need to be scared, because they're going to get really good care, because the NHS is an incredible resource. Google is not their friend. Okay. Do not Google placenta accreta, because it will terrify you. And the best thing to do is to speak to the specialist unit that's looking after you.
Okay. That's reassuring words.
Yeah.
Now, Karen, you've been here a while already this morning, and we've got our notes, and we've barely touched on anything. So you've agreed that you're going to come back in, haven't you?
Yeah. I don't know how I managed to agree to that, but sure.
We'll talk about all different things again, and no doubt there'll be other questions that will come in as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah,
I hope you've enjoyed it still.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And we will be seeing you again in the very near future.
Great.